for the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's all stand for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, to the republic,
which is
for which it stands, one nation,
under
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll, please.
Sharon Mayer,
Here.
Jonathan Peterson.
Here.
Looks like Roland Raffin is absent. Dan Buxa.
Here.
Okay, and Chairman Friedman.
Yes, present. Okay, the next item on the agenda I have here is election of officers. Tom, am I to presume that we are now have to elect officers of the BZA?
That is correct. The first meeting of the year, it's required that you elect from among yourselves a president and a vice president of the board.
Okay, I will entertain nominations for president of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Mr. Chairman, seems like we rotate, and I don't think Sharon's been chairman or president lately. If she is disposed, I'll nominate her.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
I will second that nomination.
Mr. Chairman, I will second the nomination.
Very good. Does anyone else want to nominate anybody before we call for the vote? All right, hearing none, then I would ask Tom to call for the vote, please.
Sharon Mayer,
Well, okay, yes.
Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
Dan Buxa,
Yes.
Chairman Friedman.
Yes. Very good. Madam President, you have been appointed. What's the procedure? Does she then run this meeting after this, or what? Or does she run the next meeting? I forgot how that happens.
She takes the gavel.
Pass the gavel. Yeah, I think so.
I think that's the way we do it. So
Okay.
I would be delighted to pass the gavel to Sharon Mayer. And we'll entertain the next item, of course, which is the vice president.
Okay, so do we have, does anyone want to make a nomination for vice chair?
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman,
Yes.
since Mr. Raffin was late, I nominate him to be the vice president.
I would gladly second that.
Is there a second?
Yes, I would gladly second that nomination.
Okay, very good. Tom, do you want to call the roll?
Sure. Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
Roland Raffin,
Yes.
Dan Buxa,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman,
Yes.
and President Mayer.
Yes. Okay, so moving down the agenda, we've got approval of minutes from the December 14th, 2021 meeting.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I have reviewed the minutes and I find them satisfactory, so I would move for them to be accepted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Was that a second? I'm sorry, was that a second?
Buxa, second.
Okay.
Okay. Tom, do you want to call the roll?
Yeah, Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
Roland Raffin,
Yes.
Dan Buxa,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman,
Yes.
Sharon Mayer.
Yes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is preliminary hearings, and there are none. So we will move to the next item on the agenda, which is public hearings. Okay, bear with me a second here, people. Are you able to make that a little bit bigger, Todd?
Here's the agenda. Here's the staff report.
Okay, so this is BZA docket number 21-011. Kimley Horn and Associates on behalf of Target Corporation requesting approval of multiple variances from section 26-6.405Q private lighting standards to install non-conforming parking lot lights at 8005 Calumet Avenue. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of Kimley Horn and Associates?
Connor Strega is here, but if it's okay with you, Sharon, I'd like to just introduce the item and then we
Sure.
can go to him. Okay,
Okay.
so this is a variance request from Target, and there was a preliminary hearing held in December in which you discussed the matter, but I'll just briefly give you an overview of the request and the types of variances that they're seeking. So as you may recall, Target is in the midst of a renovation and remodeling of their store at 8005 Calumet Avenue. And in addition to the interior work and the exterior landscaping and facade work that they're doing, they're hoping to complete the construction of an enhanced pickup area. And then let me see if I can get this to show on the screen better. But there's 2 rows of parking, or a single double loaded row of parking that they currently have order pickup parking. So it's kind of like a temporary parking area where the Target staff people bring out online orders and load them directly into customer vehicles. As part of their enhancements to the lot, they want to expand this area. And so this is the site plan that they're proposing. It includes an ADA ramp here for the staff people, a crosswalk, stop signs, and then these additional parking spaces which will be signed and striped to be order pickup. And so these parking spaces include kind of a center walkway through the middle here. And then you can see these striped areas, which are no parking zones. That's for the staff people to kind of walk around and put purchases directly into people's vehicles. So as part of this project, they are hoping to add some light fixtures to 2 existing poles. There's a pole here at the east end of the parking section, and then a pole at the west end. And they currently each have 2 light fixtures on them. They would like additional light for safety and security of their customers and employees. And so they're proposing to add 2 additional light fixtures to each pole. So this is let me zoom in here. This is a picture of the existing light pole. You can see there are 2 fixtures. They're simply adding a 3rd and a 4th fixture to increase the lighting and increase the light levels, I should say. In order to do this, they're asking for a variance from 4 of the lighting standards that we have in the zoning ordinance. Those are as follows. From the pole height, the maximum height that we permit in our code is 20 feet, and they're proposing 39-foot poles, which are the existing poles. So they're modifying a legal non-conforming pole. The illumination minimum and maximum for us in our code, it's a minimum, or it requires an average of 1 to 2.5 foot candles. And they're proposing light in excess of that maximum of 3.96 foot candles. So a brighter parking lot. The color temperature of the fixtures. So this is a indication as to how blue or amber a light appears. We require a maximum of 3000 K. So that's a fairly warm, more yellow light. And they're proposing 4000 K, which is slightly whiter, more like what you would compare to like a daylight type of a light bulb. And then finally, the fourth variance is for the type of luminaire. In our code, we require these ornamental types of luminaires, which are called colonial head, coach head, or acorn head fixtures. Those are for all commercial developments, and they're proposing a shoebox type of a fixture head, which is essentially exactly the same as what they have here. So, so those are the four standards that they're seeking variances from. I can say that there was just as an update from the last meeting, there was a conversation about the age of the existing light fixtures and whether or not those were the same ones that were on the site 20 years ago or so, before the property was redeveloped as a Target store, when it was a Montgomery Ward's store. So we weren't able to find a permit, a specific permit for the light fixtures.
I can speak to that. I was on the board at that time.
Okay.
That whole site was raised because in order to get the variance to build the building, there were meetings about it. At that time, it was under a planned unit development, and the terms that we came to was, I believe they had to raise the elevation of grade at least a foot and maybe 2. So all the light fixtures that are in the parking lot are brand new. There's none of the existing parking lot is remaining.
What year was
thank
that
you.
done? Sharon, wasn't that done in the early 2000s?
I believe so, yeah.
So that's good. Thanks for confirming that. Yeah, as I said, we just kind of reviewed some old aerial photos, and you can see that the lights are in different locations and that sort of thing. So
yeah,
so
a lot of it had to do, from what I recall, was with the floodplain. Of course, this was all before the flood that we ended up having several years later. And as you all know, I mean, the Target did not get flooded because of what we did at that time.
Yeah, it's over 598. I think it's a base flood elevation over there, and that's what it was. They built that pad up.
Right.
So that concludes my report. I'm just going to say that I did include a staff recommendation to approve the variances. The reason for that is that in the past, the Board of Zoning Appeals has approved these types of variances where it's a minor modification to kind of a pre-existing nonconformity, where there's an example of, for example, with Target, there was a landscaping variance that was granted for the width of their perimeter landscaping. And when the board approved that, they kind of acknowledged that, well, yeah, the parking lot was built under different circumstances, a different set of rules. And now it would be very difficult for them to retrofit and meet the current standards.
So, Tom, did you end up getting the study that you were looking for the parking lot lighting?
Yes, yeah. At the preliminary hearing, there was some question as to whether or not that variance for the overall parking illumination would be required because they hadn't done a site-wide photometric plan or photometric study. They did provide that, and that's shown on here. We did confirm that this variance, the second one shown in the chart, would be required.
So the 3.96 foot candles that you're showing there, are you saying that that's what it is at that location, or that's in excess of what's in the code?
That is the average for the site.
Okay,
So we have an average of 1 to 2.5 foot candles. So we say it can be there's going to be some dark spots and some light spots or bright spots throughout the parking lot. And as a way of just sort of giving some flexibility for that and acknowledging that, that's why we have an average that is a range. So you can exceed it in certain locations and you can go below it in certain locations, but it has to overall average that 1 to 2.5. And so their entire site, including these new poles, is 3.96. So it's brighter.
so in the area where these poles are that they're requesting to increase the lighting, what was the lighting of the photometrics there before?
Let's take a look here. Maybe Connor can speak to whether or not this includes the before or after.
Yeah,
But-
I can, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Connor.
Yeah, I can speak to that in regards to Tom, the photometric plan dated in 2018 that I shot over to you a few days ago. Using that as a reference, it appears that the area of interest was at around maybe just visually sizing it up, an average of maybe 4 foot candles. So what we're proposing is a significant increase over the existing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so I think what we're seeing here, Sharon, you can see that generally there's somewhere between 3 and 4 foot candles, or maybe 2 to 4 foot candles of light throughout the parking lot. But with the addition of these two, and this area would be similar currently, but with the addition of these two fixtures, it's significantly brighter in this area, 12, 13 at the most intense.
Yeah.
So it's very bright.
Okay.
Now, from my perspective, I'm not as concerned about the brightness in this area because it's located far from any residential development, and it's also pretty far from a public road, which, sometimes if things are too bright and they're shining on a road, it can create glare for drivers. So I don't see this as having any real negative consequences.
Ms.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes.
Tom, when I'm looking at your photometric plan, was that an estimated one, or did someone actually come out there and shoot that?
Connor can probably answer that, but typically the way that these things work is they plug the
Numbers
fixtures
in?
into a program and it generates the numbers.
Well, I don't know if those ballasts are going bad at that Target store, or the light fixtures are going bad because they're 20 years old. Have you ever been in that store at nighttime? It is dark walking around that parking lot. I don't even let my wife and my daughter go there at nighttime. I have them go to the Highland one just because it is dark walking around that place. So that should be something Target should be looking at, to actually check those light fixtures and check those ballasts, because it's a darkly lit parking lot. Has Target, since I missed the last meeting, with the amount of theft that's going on, you saw in Myers that, someone started a fire in the Meyer store as a diversion for shoplifting today in Highland. That was just recently done a couple days ago at the Walmart in Lansing area. Has Target considered putting cameras on all these poles out there for security, not only for the store, but also for the residents that are coming to the store? Connor?
As a representative, I can say that there was no discussion regarding cameras being added to the exterior parking lot at this time.
Well, that's something I'd want considered before I grant this variance. I think it's something that Target needs to do as, you know, I think not only protect the store, but also the residents. The store's located at the highway. I'm sure you have a retail problem. And I'd like to see that as a condition on doing this work as a variance, making sure cameras are added to these light poles for security.
You would propose cameras being added to just the light poles in question within the current limits of the project or across the site as a whole?
This kind of site, this kind of big development, I think it'd be best for Target in the town to have them located around on all these poles.
Gotcha.
Connor, do you know what Target has in place currently with regard to security for the patrons?
No, this is I apologize that this is something that I'm not entirely prepared for, as these items weren't necessarily the focus of the design and due diligence that I had been part of, but though I can't speak on any of this information currently, I can try to do some research and discuss with my team to bring forth the requested information.
Miss
Okay.
Mayor, Connor,
Yes.
at other stores that you represent,
Mhm.
Target, do they have security cameras on poles in other facilities?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I
The
know
majority of the
Walmarts-
work. Sure,
The
go ahead.
Walmarts I build require them, so I was just curious what Target's corporate position is.
Yeah. At this point, the extent of my familiarity with the other Target stores I represent is what I think you guys have seen, recent facade changes and light pole additions. I haven't necessarily been made aware of any sort of security standards.
Okay, yeah, well, let's, well, do any of the other members have any questions for Connor before we open this up for a public hearing?
Yes, Madam President, can I speak for a moment?
Certainly.
Okay, so of course, I'm in favor of the idea of greater illumination. And I understand that is obviously to take care of the Target employees that come out and deliver goods. That is certainly a very good reason, and I approve that, and I applaud the extra illumination. I know that Mr. Peterson at the last meeting raised issues about whether there are some alternatives to make this more decorative or attractive than these long poles. Is the reason that Target is opposing this is because it's too expensive, or is it can't work and get you the illumination that you want? And I would also add that I agree with Roland about the security cameras. I think that if we're talking about the safety of the employees as well as the customers, that certainly the entire site should have security cameras as well as very good illumination. So I'd be interested to hear, I have no problem with the illumination, but has Target, since the last meeting, we had some comments to make, have they looked into whether there are alternatives to make this a little bit more decorative than it is?
Sure. Yeah. The question, the way I understand it, is this an item resulting from the cost of full compliance, or there are other limitations or restrictions? And I would say a bit of both in that I think the cost item is just when you frame it per the initially proposed scope of work, whereas to answer the board's request for an examination of a fully compliant site, we did look into that. We did run some rough numbers and calcs. We determined that the site to be fully compliant would cost the removal of 17 existing poles and the installation of 52 across the site. I know that the cost offhanded for the material would be around $100,000, which doesn't necessarily include the demolition or the installation. I think just when that's framed against the scope of the originally proposed work, it's excessive or impractical. But to answer the second part of the question, there are conflicts with trying to meet the client's goals and preferences with the city's preferred fixture types. I know that Target likes to utilize some sort of a remote control over their fixtures, which our lighting designer expressed concern and doubt that they would be able to find a fixture that meets both the town's requirements per their zoning ordinance and Target's wishes and requirements for their own fixtures.
Well, my only reaction to all that is we're talking about a very successful company that is running this store. And there's no question that the profits that Target have made over the past year with COVID, with the COVID pandemic and doing all this business and bringing goods out to the customers has really, it doesn't bother me if it costs them a little bit more money to get this done. And $100,000 is not much money for Target for the improvements that would be to the lot. So, I would be interested to hear what other members of the BZA have to say about this.
Miss Mayor?
Well, I mean,
Okay.
I understand, that what the town's ordinance reads, but I tend to agree with Connor that it would be impractical to ask them to replace all the parking lot lighting because they want to add, some additional lighting in the pickup area. I think what they're trying to do is a very good thing, and if we deny it, then they just won't do it at all, and we'll end up with a parking lot that has a pickup area that's poorly lit. So I think there might be a solution where can they add maybe a couple extra poles in that aisleway that are compliant, 20-foot tall poles instead of just adding some shoe boxes to those existing poles.
Miss Mayor? Connor, this is a question, obviously, since you've been thrown at this last minute. I'm counting about 15 poles that are on the Target property. Do you have a service record? I mean, when's the last time you changed these poles out? I mean, maybe it's time after 18 years or so to look at changing all these so they match and they're consistent and stuff. You could probably get the same illumination just by changing these poles out. Height, I'm not worried about. And I'm not worried about on this site with the density and having the whiter light and making this property a little bit brighter because of the amount of people going in and out of there at nighttime and the safety for the shoppers and the criminal element that's coming in here. Have you looked at the service records? When's the last time you even changed out these fixtures? Because, a fixture that's 18 years old, it might be time.
Yeah, I know there's a bit of discrepancy between Target's records and that I was provided and what Tom was able to find under the town's records. I personally was provided a plan that shows installation of fixtures in 2018. I believe Tom wasn't able to verify that from the town side, but from our perspective, the the fixtures in question are included in that 2018 plan. The majority of the fixtures at the front of the store are about 3 years old, 3 years old. I'm
I would
surprised to
assume
hear. Go ahead.
Targets would have, I would assume Target would have receipts and purchase orders
Yeah,
and contracts that whoever installed them, right?
right.
So I guess in that vein, if we were going to ask them to comply with the code and replace these light fixtures that are 39 feet tall with 20-foot tall poles, you would need more poles to cover that same area.
Yeah, that's correct. Just to briefly reiterate, our rough exercise wasn't a full design, estimated around 52 poles being installed on the site to replace 17 existing.
Right. So they'd be tearing up the parking lot, you know, to run underground conduit to each and every one of those 52 poles. So I mean, it's a huge undertaking for what, you know, for what they're trying to do.
And what I was saying, I wasn't saying change them out. I was saying if you kept the existing poles, there's no sense of keeping old poles. You have to look at maybe changing those out to the same ones at 39 footers. But if they're 20 years old and they're 39 feet tall, they're old poles. They need to be changed out and swapped out at the same time, I would guess, the rest of the lot to make it consistent and the lighting consistent, because you're putting different bulbs in those 4 in there, aren't you? They're different heads
No,
compared to the rest of the lot and different illuminations,
No.
right?
think he's saying he's
Proposed
gonna-
4,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
the proposed 4 fixtures that are currently being proposed are consistent with the existing fixtures on the same poles.
Okay. I thought Tom said earlier about the lights different, or is that just between the new standard and the old standard?
I'm not
I'm not
entirely
sure.
sure.
I'm not sure, Roland, but yeah, what they're proposing is a fixture that's identical to the fixtures that are there today.
Okay.
So you can see them here, and then actually that might be an old fixture. But there's a cut sheet of them here. I mean, these are fairly standard parking lot lights that you find
Right.
in commercial developments.
Yep.
Okay, so any other board members have questions? Okay, so we'll open it up to the public. Tom, are there any members of the public on the Zoom?
I'm not seeing anybody on the Zoom. Dustin, is there anybody in the room?
There are no members of the public unaffiliated with the Board of Zoning Appeals in the room.
Okay, so in that there's no one in the room and there's no one on the call, do we open it and close it back up again?
Yes.
Okay, so at this time, I'll open the meeting up to the public for any questions they would like to raise on this matter.
Ms. Chairman,
Yes.
Connor, so you're putting these new LED fixtures. So you're telling me the rest of the lot are all LED fixtures, or are they metal halide? What are they?
Not the entire lot. The documentation that I currently am looking at right now doesn't show fixtures across the entire lot, just maybe about maybe 3/4 of them. And I can look into the fixtures that are currently shown and provide that information at a later date if requested.
Yeah, I'm just curious at the lights. Obviously, you're putting new LED fixtures on there. You know, what are the other 13 fixtures? What kind of light are they producing? What kind of are they metal halide? Are they?
I can confirm that the 6 light poles in the front center of the parking lot all feature the same fixtures.
Okay, so you might have changed a few of them by the front of the store recently, but the rest of them could be 20 years old, right? That's safe to say?
Per the plan I'm looking at, the majority, over half of them were replaced at around 2018, and the minority of them were unchanged.
Hey,
Are you
Roland,
able to, is he able to share his screen, Tom? So he can show us what he's talking about?
that
Yeah,
don't
I think
know.
I've been able to, hold on, let me, I have a button, but it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Hmm. What I'm looking at here on the screen is, if you can, I'll try to zoom in on this table here, but you can see here that all of these shown here are the LED lights. So there are 4, 5, there are, it looks like 10 lights that are not the one shown here on this lumen, on this spec sheet. So
There's 10 of them that are not the same.
Okay, so where are those, the B, A3 and the A2s?
So this is one here, which is kind of off the lot.
Oh, yeah, but to just elaborate on that, there are a series of poles and fixtures included on this plan that are off the lot that were included to accurately model existing lighting conditions.
Okay, okay, so the ones that are LED are all Target property lights, and the other ones outside of that are not Target. Is that
I'm
correct?
not sure if that's accurate. There's 10 times, Tom, you said there's 10 of them that are not LED?
So what I'm looking at here is on this, you can see on here, this group here. Okay, so there's one, let's see, so if we can find these.
Yeah,
These here are not, and these are not on the Target lot.
and then
Okay.
there are 3 to the east of where we just were that are denoted as the legend.
So
Right, and
those are like
these,
back lot area.
right, these are not any. So you can kind of see the difference here if you look at this picture here. Having this additional line in here is the LED. So all of these in the front of the store here, and then to the south of the store, those are all the LEDs. This is an LED, and it looks like maybe this one here out by Calumet Avenue is the other type.
Oh, okay, closer to the street.
Right, so essentially all of the Target lights
Or LED currently.
are the LED as shown here, with the
Okay.
exception of, as Sharon said, like the back lot. This is the loading area with the docks, and then this one light here. And then this section here is actually owned by a different group.
That's in front of the Staples store there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Miss Mayor,
Yes, Roland.
Tom, what is the position of staff regarding security on poles in big retail centers like this and cameras?
We don't have, excuse me, we don't have a formal requirement for cameras that I'm aware of. But I can tell you that our police department would love to have a camera on every square foot of the town, because it's very helpful for them in identifying vehicles and tracking criminals.
Sure.
So typically when we do a site, anytime we have a new development come in and we do a site plan review committee, the chief of police or one of the lieutenants makes that recommendation, and then works with the developer to find the best places for those cameras. My sense is that there probably are cameras with Target. I don't know how well they collaborate with our police department though.
But they still have the ability to have live footage and recording, I would guess, in case there was some kind of major crime that needed that kind of footage. I would assume they have it inside the store. They might have a few outside.
Mr. Raffin, I would be shocked if there were not cameras, at least at the store entrance where the proposed action is to take place with drop-offs.
Connor, is this something you'd be willing to take back to Target regarding to have some kind of security cameras on these poles in the parking lot as a condition to this variance?
Yeah, I'd be willing to take it back to the Target team and discuss further.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I think we'd want to know what, what they currently have on the site
Right.
as far as site security cameras go, and what they're willing to do as far as an improvement goes on what they have. And then as far as the lighting goes, I personally, I agree with what Roland said. It does seem dimly lit there. And I too go to the Highland store because of that. So, that it does seem like there needs to be more lighting there, but, directly to the south is, homes. So, so that's a concern too, but I think right directly to the west of, the entry to the store, there needs to be more lighting there. Now, is shoe boxes, the solution, or do we want something more decorative there? Can we add some decorative lighting without, making it look like it's a mishmash of two different types of pole lights?
Ms. Mayor,
Yes.
personally, I didn't have a problem with the lights right here, being so far set back off the street, and obviously that even though they're legal, non-conforming, I'd be more concerned about making sure this is a little more illuminated around the area. And I'd probably like to continue this, that maybe Connor and Target can work with staff and the chief of police regarding a plan on getting cameras on these poles around the store.
And did Stuart or Jonathan, Dan, do you have any thoughts on this?
I would support Mr. Raffin's motion to continue.
And I would also support the motion to continue to the February 8th meeting to see what information we can get. And I would encourage the use of security cameras if we can get it done.
So that being said, Ms. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to continue this and let Connor work with staff regarding the items that we requested.
Very good.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Tom?
Yep.
Call
The only
roll.
discussion I have, Ms. Mayor, is I think it'd be beneficial if we had the chief to bring up any kind of concerns while we're doing this, just to make sure that it's something as a law enforcement expert can bring his expertise to the table for the safety of the store and our residents.
So is this something that that between now and February 8th, Tom could maybe meet with the police chief and get his take on it?
Yeah, I
Or
think.
are you asking for him to attend a meeting?
Well, I would definitely ask for the chief's feedback on this and his professional advice.
Yeah, I think that's the first thing we would do is, we would just work with the chief to figure out whether or not the cameras they have are thought to be sufficient. And, if there's any additional cameras that they would like. based on that, I think we could probably get back with Connor and try to figure that out.
Okay, so in the meanwhile, then Connor, you'll be in touch with Tom and the police chief, and you'll be checking with Target on what the security system is that they have in place. Okay, Tom, you want to call the roll?
Sure. Jonathan Peterson,
Yes.
Roland Raffin,
Yes.
Dan Buxa,
Yes.
Stuart Friedman,
Yes,
Sharon Mayer.
Yes.
Okay, motion
Okay.
carries.
Thank you, Connor.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we had no findings of fact. Do we have any additional items for discussion? Do you have an update on our friend Michael Dust?
The only update I have is that they are still waiting for materials to complete the enclosure of the garage, the attached garage.
Okay. All right, well, then, next meeting is February 8th, 2022. We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I will second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Mhm. See you next time.
Have a great night.